Hi creative friends, thank you so much for being here. So today I'm going to do a tutorial on how I alter the cover of my book. This is a very cheap composition book, and I am going to turn the cover, both front and back, into a very artsy piece. At least that's what I have in my mind. I don't know how it's going to turn out. But there's absolutely nothing wrong with keeping the cover as it is. It's just that for me, I like to make it more personal and artsy. So the very first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to open it up like so, because that's how I'm going to work on it, both front and back. And this cover is very hard, and it can take a lot of layers of mixed media. So that's a really good thing. Now, what I'm going to do, I think, with this video is I'm going to break it up into parts when I post it. And that way, if you wanted to do your own book and alter the cover, then you can work along with each video, if that makes any sense, because I cannot use a heating tool on the glue. I'm going to have to let it dry naturally. So that means I'm going to have to work on this first part and then leave it for a few hours until it completely dries and then come back. So I think I'm going to split the video up into sections. But anyways, moving along from that, the very first thing I'm going to do is I am going to look at my collage stash right over here, and I want big pieces because I just want to fill up the page as quickly as possible. I don't want a whole bunch of really small pieces, but that's totally a personal decision. So if you want to use lots of small pieces, then that's totally up to you. And I think this is such a fun part, just picking out collage pieces. Oh, that's just so beautiful. I don't know if I'm going to use it, but it is really beautiful. And what I'm looking for at this very first phase is I'm just looking for large pieces, because most, if not all of this, is probably going to get covered up. So I want a good quality thick paper, and I think we're just gonna stick with that for now. I've got some pieces here, and I'm not looking at colors or anything like that at this point, because like I said, a lot of it's going to get covered up. So the first thing I'm going to do is apply my Mod Podge to the page, and this is Mod Podge right here. And I also have this Liquitex Professional. It's a gloss, medium, and varnish, and it has two uses as far as I know. The first use is you can use it to thin out your paints and just make it more luminous and transparent. And the second reason is you can use it as glue. And I generally use Mod Podge because it is a lot cheaper than the Liquitex. I'm not sure how much that Liquitex glue was, but it's Liquitex, so it's kind of pricey, and I use a lot of glue in my art journal, so I just tend to go with a Mod Podge because to my way of thinking, glue is glue. I don't know, I could be wrong on that, but when I paint on canvas, I tend to use a Liquitex more so. But if I'm working in my art journal, then I tend to use the Mod Podge. Now, you want to leave this spine free. I don't want to put any collage. I mean, some of the Mod Podge got on there, and that's fine. But I don't want to put any collage on the spine, because when you start using your book and you're opening it and closing it, then obviously you don't want the spine to be stiff. It needs to have some give so that it can open and close without tearing and ripping. So I'm going to leave the spine free. And what I'm going to do is just start laying my pieces. And like I said, because so much of this, if not everything, is going to get covered, I'm not really too concerned about, you know, where the pieces are going to go and what the colors are or anything like that, because at this point I'm just wanting to build up my surface and just cover all this part here, the book cover. So I'm gonna go like so over there. And like I said in one of my earlier videos, and even at the start of this video, is don't ever use a heating tool with glue because it is just going to be a big mess. So a word of caution. And if that's already happened to you, then you'll know what I mean. If you've already used a heating tool with glue. So I am gonna lay this out here. And sometimes I wonder if, like, say when I'm doing something that's very repetitive, like applying the glue and applying the collage on my page, if I should fast forward it, or if you want to see the details of what I'm doing. Because sometimes I think, oh, maybe that's boring that I'm you know, showing this. All I'm really doing is applying collage and glue. Should I fast forward through this? But I don't know. Some people, maybe sometimes that's not, like, people don't like that. I'm not sure. But if you have any, if you have an opinion one way or the other, just leave it in the comments and I would really appreciate it. So going forward, when I make my videos, I'll know if I should be fast forwarding through some of this stuff, or if, you know, it's better that I show everything. I'm not sure. So I would appreciate that very much. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna be adding, and I just turn my pages upside down. I turn the collage upside down. See, there's like writing here, but I'm just turning it upside down. And I just think it's so interesting that way. And that's probably all gonna get covered up anyways. So I'm not really too concerned about it. And I just really, really love this book. It was a poetry book, and it's just so artistic because the drawings in there were so amazing. The collage that I'm using, I just love it. So I'm just obsessed with it right now, and I'm using it for all my stuff. And I've had people ask me if I don't feel guilty for ripping up books, because I have turned books into art journals, and I use books for collage. And sometimes people think that, you know, well, you shouldn't be ripping up books and what have you. But I just feel that, no, I don't feel guilty at all, because that book was probably going to end up in the landfill. I get all my books thrifted, or like I said, you know, when my daughter was, as she grows up, we every couple of years we get rid of her books, and she keeps some of them and then she gets rid of some of them. So I would have donated those books anyways, the ones that my daughter didn't want. Or when I go to a thrift store, those are books that somebody has donated. So it would have just ended up in a landfill. So no, I feel like I'm giving new life to something that would have just been thrown away anyways. So I don't feel bad at all for using books and tearing them up and using them as collage or turning them into art journals or anything. But I have been asked that question. So as you can see, the page is coming along really well, the cover I should say, and it's almost all covered. Now, even though you cannot add a heating tool to the glue, you can add paint onto this wet, Mod Podge. It's not gonna do anything at all. If anything, the Mod Podge kind of makes it more fluid and luminous, just as this Liquitex professional, I don't know what it's matte varnish would do that. So it's the same thing. So I can add paint onto this wet surface right here, and that's exactly what I'm gonna do. And that's another way to just speed up your process a little bit. So I don't have to let this completely dry without adding anything on top. I can add paints on top of this wet surface right here. And I'm really loving this like little piece of red here. So I'm gonna add that over there and maybe put a few more pieces. So like so. And okay, so I'm really liking that. It's just all covered up now. And now I'm gonna add, well, I want to add this little piece right here. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to add some paint. And I think what I'm going to go with is I'm going to go with a gorgeous red and just kind of smush it into there. I'm also going to drop some of this ink. It's my Liquitex Burnt Sienna ink. And I'm just going to kind of drop it onto the page right there. And it gives it a really aged look. If you use it by itself, it just ages the papers so beautifully. And you can obviously water it down to make it really, really light. Just a very faint kind of a color, but I like the bold color. So I'm just gonna kind of add it like so. And I'm going to add some orange now to the red. I just love that deep, deep kind of orangey red. I just love it. It's so beautiful. And I'm going to water some of that down. And see, I can leave that ink like that. I don't need to spread it around and it will dry. And I'll show you how it looks when I come back. Like it just has a little bit of a different look because I haven't watered it down. It's just sitting there like in a big puddle. So this is a good thing to do if you want to leave it overnight. And then by the morning, it will have all dried up. But if you want to dry it if you just want to leave it for a few hours, then that may not be a good thing to do. So I'm just kind of playing around. Another great texture is fingerprints. Like just putting my fingerprints on there is so, not only is it satisfying, but it just makes some really beautiful marks. So see on the green, it's just really, really beautiful. And it's such a personal touch, but it's just so gorgeous. And I love doing that, just making fingerprint marks. just gonna kind of go like that. And put some of this orange over here. So I think what I'm gonna do now is I am gonna add some of this chalk paint in Cashew, and the reason why I want to do that is because I want to add some not only opaque parts of this, but I also want to lighten up the tone of some of the page. So I just want to just lighten it up a bit. So that's another thing with an interesting page, is there should be different tones. So there should be, say, really light tones, and then medium tones, and then dark tones. And it should not all be in equal proportion to each other. So it shouldn't be like a 30-30-30 split, because that's too kind of boring. So, you know, if you use like, say, 10% light colors or a light tone, then there should be, say, you know, 10% dark and then 80% midtones. Or you can do it in whatever proportion you want, but there should be some like, it should not be an equal split. I hope I'm explaining that correctly. I probably didn't explain that very well at all, but I'm just wanting to add some light tones here, because all the colors they're all in the same tone. There's nothing too light or too dark. And so I know this looks like a big, huge mess, and that's okay. It's supposed to look like a big, huge mess, especially at this point. And the way I look at it, the juicier a mess, the better it is, because that's a great start. I mean, I wouldn't want it to be all stiff and stilted. So this is good. It's got some good energy here. It's very warm dominated, and that's totally fine. So I'm gonna go like this, and I'm gonna let some of this writing show through there. See if I kind of scrape it off like that. It can, some of the writing can show through. And what I'm gonna do is use my blue Stabilo right here and just make some marks. So nothing over the top. I'm just adding some cools, and I'm just adding some interest. To the page, and just making it interesting. At this point, I'm just going for interesting. Just like, wow, that's really interesting. I wonder what that is, or something like that. That way there's no pressure for anything to be anything. Okay. So let's just go like that. And This is looking so juicy right now. It's crazy. I love it. And I'm going to add some gold. It's hard to stop, you know. I was supposed to stop this a couple of minutes ago, but it's just really hard to stop. I want to keep on doing stuff. So that gold. So as you can see, a lot of this paper has been covered up with the paint. You can see some of the paper over there and maybe over here, but for the most part, and maybe a little bit over there, but for the most part, all the paper has been covered up, which is good. I wanted a lot of the paper to be covered up. And so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna let this completely dry, and this is gonna be part 1 of the video. So thank you so much, and I hope you follow along and make your own altered art journal or book cover, and I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you. Bye-bye.